Karlee May, if we haven't met before. I'm in marketing and communications, and this is our final webinar in our series. If you've seen the last two, we had one on target segmentation, and then we also had one on competitor analysis. So this piece today is about marketing planning. So how do we bring all of this together to make your roadmap for the year? So what is marketing planning? So let's cover the basics of this, which is this is your map. This is what will take you through the next quarter, the next year. And this is what aligns all your strategy, your strategy with your goals and your tactics. So all of that has to stem from your strategic objectives. So um, and there are major pillars of our marketing planning as well. So they all tie together into integrated marketing. And this is how it becomes your engine for growth. Also, another note, feel free to jump in at any point. I'd like this to feel more of a workshop, more of a discussion. If you have any questions, feel free to pop in.
Will we get these slides after?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Now that we've covered this, so we can see here how this all blends in together. So what you need to start it is your competitor analysis. You need all your research in there. So in our last two webinars, we did our target segmentation where we had our audience profiles. We also had our competitor analysis with our SWOT and PESTLE, and we'll cover those here. But it's important to have a background of understanding of your business. So what's your budget planning? What is your objectives for your business? Are there target accounts that matter to you? Wins and losses, or darts and laurels. So understanding where you've been and where you're going to have that information, because you want to be grounded in facts and data. We don't want to be making knee-jerk reactions of, I think I'd like a podcast. Why? Why do you want a podcast? How does that fit into your plan? It's also really important. There's many resources out there in terms of like secondary research, so industry news and trends, looking at studies, benchmarks, just to understand how you operate within the ecosystem of your industry, and also overall, what is the direction the country's going in, or the province, to see how you can strategically plan your next step. So just to remind everyone, if you attended our last two webinars, and if you haven't, just to fill you in. So these were our target personas. So our case study was a one-woman marketing agency who was operating in Barrie, Toronto, and Vaughan. And she did the work to find who her clients are, who her bread and butter clients are, their patterns and their behaviors. And it's very important to understand who they are. So we give them personalities and names. So for example, Mason, he is someone who owns a renovation company. So his name isn't as important as it is he is high touch, high spend. He is someone who needs a full package of services. He needs Facebook, he needs strategic planning, he needs graphic designer support. So that might be a direction that this agency would lean to, rather than someone like a Rosie, who is just once in a while needs a logo update or some minor graphic design. So understanding who is actually purchasing from you and your clientele is important to see. Like, maybe you want to exit certain markets. Maybe you don't want to be operating in Toronto anymore. The competition's too high, and the clients you're getting there aren't as profitable to your business. So this is really important to understand, like, who's coming through. And then we also did a competitor analysis as well. So the SWOT analysis, a positioning map. The positioning map is how your market looks at you. So if you want to move into providing more luxury services, but the market perceives you as a low-cost budget option, then there would be work to do in your marketing, in your strategy, and how you move up the positioning to being seen as more high quality, high price. Because if they see you as low cost, you're going to have to make some moves there. Market share is a good one to look at if you're coming from a bigger shop. But I think the feature comparison and the SWOT are also really, really great tools to use, especially with the feature comparison, because you can see how you match up to your next direct competitor. So having all this information will help you as you plan your marketing plan out. Any comments or questions?
Actually, can I ask you a question on the feature map? Um,
Sure.
when somebody's doing this, should they be putting in features that the customer cares most about, like from priority perspective and down?
You can include that, yes. So I would include all the features that you have versus your competitors, and then also you can rank them.
Okay,
So the tool is yours to revise. There isn't just one way to do it.
fair enough.
Okay, next slide. Also, if you're starting out and you're a one-man shop yourself, you don't need to have endless decks and endless research. You can start small. You can have the one service, one message, one placement, and just focus on one place, and build a strong foundation there and strategically expand. You don't have to have the size of a massive corporation in terms of the analysis. So I want to make sure everyone gives themselves grace that you don't need to have an extensive, comprehensive analysis. You can work with what you have. Which brings us to the meat and potatoes of our presentation. So this is your strategic marketing one pager. So this is where you combine your objectives, your strategies, and you bring it all in one, and they must tie together. And we also have to have an understanding of what strategy, what objectives, what tactics are. Because there's a misconception that, oh, just saying I want a Facebook page or I want a podcast. That's not a strategy. That's a tactic. So with your objectives, and we're going to go through an example of this. So you want to define what your overarching business objectives are. Is it grow revenue? Is it cross-selling to, or, is it grow revenue? Is it product extension? Do you want to exit out of markets? And you want to make sure your marketing strategy is aligned to that business objective. So saying I need to purchase a printer, a 3D printer, is not a strategy. It's not something that would align to your business objective for growth revenue. Maybe it's a tool or an asset you would own. So you want everything to tie back to the other, which brings into, we all know what goals are, SMART goals, making sure the goal matches the strategy. And the KPIs, that there is an array of them, that we have an understanding of the full picture. And then we get into the fun stuff of planning out your tactics. What pieces are we going to use? Are we going to use? What components are we going to use in it? Is it going to be an integrated campaign with email ads, billboards, radio? Are we going to do a cross-selling, cold calling campaign to our clients, being like, hey, I have this sneak peek for you coming up. So this all comes back to each other. And then we also have our budget, so how much money you have, and then your results. But the idea is to have this all in one document so you can see the map as it comes out. So here's an example here that we've just drummed up out of our brains. So for example, our business objective is grow revenue. So I have two different strategies that I want to do for my grow revenue. I want a product extension into a new market, so Muskoka. Maybe I haven't been in Muskoka for my business yet. And my second one is cross-selling to existing clients. That's part of my grow revenue. If you're finding you're having blank page syndrome, thinking, I don't know what my strategy would be to match my goal, Google is available. There are so many resources. Sandbox has a ton of resources, and we'll touch more. Sam will speak on that later, but you don't have to just know things. Do some research, and the internet will help you on your other resources. So I'll start with the first one. So grow revenue, product extension to new market. Okay, that's what I want to do, is I want to go into Muskoka. So what are my goals and KPIs? I want to grow overall by $20,000. I want more. I want to sign 5 community partnerships. because we in Muskoka. So this still all pulls back here. And then we see our KPIs. So we have the normal KPIs. What are the total sales? How much did we sell? But then we add some more to get more of a clear picture of how our sales are doing. What's our website social conversion rate? How many net new leads did we bring in? How many new clients we have come in? How many partnerships were signed? So we want to make sure that we're pulling. Sorry, Sarah, I see your hands up.
Um, when you say partnerships, do you mean customers?
Customers, this was just an example. I said community partnerships. If you're doing product extension, it could be retail stores that you want to partner with so you can place your product in the store. So this was just
Gotcha.
a general word to use for this example. It could be clients, what have you. I just wanted to show a goal and KPIs.
Right. Because the partnership signed, well, if your goal was 5 community partnerships, then
Then your KPI would be
yeah,
how many signed. So that's what I'm
gotcha.
I'm
Okay,
I'm pulling with the alignment piece, right? So total
gotcha.
sales, partnerships, but then we also want to have a more full picture of the revenue coming in. So then, as we can see, this starts to spray out. So then we have our tactics. How am I going to meet these KPIs and how am I going to meet these goals? I'm going to do an integrated campaign. So billboards, radio, social, Google ads, launch May, go through till August. I want to appear at 2 trade show booths. I want a sandbox speaking center position at Terra Talks in Muskoka. I want to cold call 20 community partners, clients, what have you, to connect with them, for example, to grow revenue. And then it becomes this part becomes, a little bit more obvious. So how much your budget for it? Is your campaign $1,000, your trade show booth, you have 2,000 speaking in kind, and then you put your timelines on. So you would do the same thing with your next objective. So we won't go through this one as fully, but for example, yeah, cross-selling to existing clients. I have 2 goals for that. Under those 2 goals, I have 4 KPIs and I have 3 tactics. So it starts growing where we actually start planning each component in. Any questions, comments about pulling that alignment together? Hank, you're pretty quiet. All right, so now that we have this picture, um, you can also use, sorry, I wasn't ready to read. You can also find any template. So this is just one that we've made for the purpose of this presentation. But you can find all sorts of things. HubSpot, BDC, they have templates. You can find on Reddit even free templates. It's important to have something that works for you. I like simple. I think simple, like people might see like simple, like, oh, this isn't complicated enough. I think it's just complicated enough. We can see the map. Which comes to, so we'll move on to like some notes on each of each of these components. So like with setting goals, we all know SMART goals, but I highly suggest going for an uncomfortable number. Even if you, so for this business, my case study, I said I want to make 20,000 revenue. She's already only making 10,000 revenue a year. This is a part-time. Okay, great. So even if she hits an extra 5,000, even if she hits 15,000, she has already blown away what she's done in the previous year. So making sure you're pushing yourself and it is challenging. If you can use industry benchmarks to help you figure out if you're moving the same way. And if you're in a startup phase, I would say use your first 3 years because you're competing against yourself. Ultimately, you are competing in the market against your competitors and indirect competitors, but it's how you're going to grow in the market yourself. And these are just some of the goals you can do. You have awareness, engagement, conversion, loyalty. So down the funnel, they're great ones to pick from. And then this brings us to tactical execution. So know your calendar. So it's not just what you're doing yourself, but also bear in mind major and minor holidays and also days of remembrance, days of observance that are important to your industry. So like there's the day of mourning. If you're in construction, the day of mourning would be an important one to acknowledge in your campaigns, or as, basic content hygiene. That content planning is similar, but that could be a whole webinar in itself, the different components, making sure you're matching those days. But also, it's really important to know your low and your high seasons. And when are your clients busy? So if you're seeing that you have a act Q4 and you just have campaigns and trade booths and Christmas parties and galas and sponsorships happening, then you know that that is not a time to offload old products. It's not a time for planning. So use your low seasons to do things like offload old products with, use that as an introductory discount time. And then you can prepare for your high seasons in advance. So I previously worked in professional services, and not just the partners, but the clients. They were most busy for events in autumn. That is the busiest time. So during summer, I was setting up about over 3 or 4 months, getting that 6 weeks of events. So when you have 5 events a week for 2 months, you don't have time for that. So you need to be prepped and ready. But it wasn't just to their schedules, it was to the clients because it was CFOs. So CFOs run on a similar schedule to them. So it was making sure that we understood. So prepare for high seasons in advance, understand your low season, and then use tactics itself, use what works for your business. It should be specific. It shouldn't just be, I'm going to, like I said, I'm just going to build a podcast. Why are we doing a podcast? How does that align to your your objective? How are you going to measure that? Make sure the tactics are specific, when and where, what you're going to do, how it all ties in together. So here is an example of a tactical calendar. I also like putting the campaign on one side, having a list of campaigns, and then seeing Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 go across. But this gives you the picture. So here we can see Q2 is busy. We're very busy from April to May. This is where a lot of the campaigns are launching. We have the cross-selling campaign feeding into the holiday campaign, but Q1 is where the best time would be for additional planning, making sure all those pieces are together, and then rolling out, and then coming to the end of the year and Q4, getting ready for strategic planning in January. So this is how you look at it and go, I have too much in August. I've planned a lot of stuff that's beyond my capacity, or it's too much for my clients. I'm over marketing to them, and you can spread it out. So this is where Kristen, as she mentioned, I heard that there was a cancellation of the mayor's luncheon. So have a backup plan. Sam's going to speak a little bit on this. So in April, there was the Terra Talk. And I was due to speak on that as well for the first one. And then there was that huge snowstorm that hit. So let alone Sandbox getting into the building, people were without electricity and food, and it was crazy for a couple of weeks even. So being able to pivot the event a week later, the work that had to be done there. So we'll talk to Sam in 1 second, but when it comes to backup plans, I like consider each point of your plans. Like, what is there anything you can do to pivot? Like, like what you can do to prepare ahead of time and your options for change. So flexibility and preparedness are key, but also grace, because sometimes even all the best planning and backup planning, you can still have something change. So Sam, do you want to speak more on Terra Talks and that changing in
For
April?
sure. For that one of our big flagship events. So obviously in the background, we have graphics ready to go just in case you need to pivot, and we make them like easy to adjust if we have to pivot quickly. So like leaving blank spaces for specific text based on the situation causing your event to be adjusted. That was a big one. Having your email communications drafted just in case a scenario arises that you have to pivot the event. Um, In this event's case, having your contact information like text and phone numbers as well as email, because if you have to get a hold of your caterers or your speakers or your attendees very quickly, you're going to want to be able to just like pick up the phone and be like, hey, this is the situation, rather than being like, did they get my email? I don't really know. Having a backup date, if possible, is great too, and then being able to have any backup speakers on hand if need be that can fill any gaps made by the date change. And the same goes for like your caterers, just in case yours are unable to make the event work. Like, for instance, the Terra Talks this year, we had to pivot our caterers because the power was out for so long, and our caterers didn't have a generator for their fridge, so their food went bad and they had to restock. So just having some of those things as a backup plan is great to have.
Anyone have any other tips or tricks they'd want to share on what you've had to do to pivot? I like to do the risk management top down first. So I have, as I mentioned, I previously worked in professional services and I had to project manage an event in Calgary from Ontario. And they wanted to have an event in February. Now, February in Calgary is sometimes colder than Mars. So, um, that was a matter of approaching my stakeholders with the analysis. Like, is this the best time for this event? Because you want people driving an hour, and you have clients who are an hour and a half drive away. And if a major snowstorm comes in, I am not personally on the ground to pivot. So we have our team on the ground, but in terms of conducting, I don't know that this is the wisest, and also people safety. So we moved the event to April, which was, well, I mean, this happened in April for Sandbox, but Calgary was a little less. I was like, I don't want to do this in February. So having that eye for risk analysis too ahead of time, like, oh, but good timing for this. Or I've had partners want to have events the last week of June. It's the end of school year and Canada Day is coming up. People are going to their cottages. So maybe we bump that event 2 weeks earlier before people start shutting down for the summer. Okay, this comes to what I think is the top 5 marketing planning missteps. So we've all heard this before: fail to plan, plan to fail. Also, you won't know where you're going. How do you know if you've grown or how you've expanded by not documenting that? Even if, you know, being able to say, like, we tried something, this was an experiment, it didn't work, and that's okay. We'll try something different. So having that plan to at least see how it works, being able to revise it is very, very important. I touched on this earlier, mistaking tactics for strategy. So you don't want to have a knee-jerk reaction to the market. So just because you've seen one viral video doesn't mean you need a TikTok account. Is it actually something you need for your business? That's something you can think about. But just saying, I'm going to have a Facebook ad campaign, that is not a strategy, that is a tactic. Your strategy would be, are we going to cross-sell to clients? Are we going to, increase our loyalty program by 25%? That's what your strategy is. Also, unrealistic expectations. So it takes longer than 6 weeks to put an event together. If you a minimal budget, also if you're spending, you tend to get what you pay for, especially with online ads. So if you're spending $100, then you'll probably get $100 in results, and that's okay. And a video not going viral or content not going viral does not mean it failed. It definitely has a piece of pride in your content strategy and your marketing pieces. The next one, focusing only on top of funnel. Top of funnel is fun. That's where we do all the really fun Instagram campaigns, the big flashy events. But you don't want to forget your middle and your conversion stages. So doing one-on-ones, having a coffee with your client and discussing their plan, that's a tactic. That counts. Don't give that short shrift. So, and that you can also, when you're looking at that middle and conversion stages, see why you're not pulling people down your funnel. And then lastly, failure to execute. So I like to say ideas are cheap. Execution is where the money is. You can have the biggest, most beautiful plan, but if you don't do anything with it, if you don't execute it, then you've done a great homework assignment without actually making it happen. So that is really important. Making sure you're executing on the plan. Any other thoughts? And lastly, review, revise, or refine. This is supposed to be a living document. It's not supposed to something that you're supposed to leave until the end of your fiscal year, and just forget about. Like continuously go back. This should be your North Star, your real map. You're like, okay, we've done this, or at Q1, maybe I want to pivot, maybe I want to get rid of this piece, or I don't know, an ice storm has come through, so this event is canceled. So we're going to do something different instead. I'm going to run an email campaign. Continuously look at your wins and losses. I find some of the most valuable things I've learned about businesses that I've worked for has been the failures, the things that didn't work. Be like, oh, why didn't it work? Well, I got this really cool insight. I understand something about the market. Sam can speak more too about how Sandbox Center can help. Do you want to take it away?
Absolutely. At Sandbox, we've got like our roundtables, which are sector specific. So right now we're actually running the marketing boot camp version of the series, led by experts in each of these industries. So next up will be sales and then something else after that. But there's a different expert in the room each time to take you through different aspects of marketing. We've got our peer circles, peer-to-peer support, where you can chat with people who are in your industry who may be experiencing similar issues or difficulties or even your wins. You can share those. We've got our Lean Startup series, which is our one-page business plan, a living document. So updating it as you're building, going through a snapshot of your business on a single page. So starting with the problem, um, defining who your customer is, outlining your solution, mapping out how you're reaching your customers, and then making clear what makes you different, explaining how your business will make money, and then you can also look at the costs. We've also got a bunch of educational webinars and lunch and learns. Topics vary: marketing, sales, finance, HR. Networking breakfast where you can talk with attendees from a vast majority of industries, and then one-on-one lean canvas coaching with our lean stack certified coaches as well.
Thank you, Sam. We'll move on to the next one then. So lastly, this is as we're coming to the end, here is, a basic version of a marketing planning template. As I mentioned earlier, there's so much you can find online. I do like a basic version. I like it clear, clear cut. I like to see where I'm coming and going. You can, have all the beautiful formatting in the world, but really it really matters what you put in those boxes. But this is I think the most straightforward way to understanding how your plan ties together, and then you can use this as a scorecard as well. As you add in your metrics, you can add the columns. You're like, this is what happened and here are notes for that, and then keep editing as you need to. So thanks for joining me. This is the end of my piece. I know we have some time if we want to have some discussion. I want to hear how your business is moving in this market. I know it's an interesting time in general in the world. So if anyone has any comments or something you'd like to talk about.
Karlee, I missed um, there was a piece where you were talking about remembering middle and something else, conversion tactic.
So middle and end of funnel. So our middle and
And
bottom
the
of
funnel.
funnel. So the middle is when so you have your awareness, engagement, and you have conversion. That's a very basic funnel. There's also the hourglass version where you look at loyalty at the bottom. So the middle is when you're engaging and you're starting to try and pull consumers or clients downwards. So you can have a say you have a music business, like you teach children music. So top of funnel would be an Instagram campaign or a TikTok campaign to bring people to your website, and then from there you have a form. With the form, you can reach out personally to people, and that can be middle and conversion as well. So there's different things you can do. You can go, I don't know, present at schools, parent, teacher. I don't own a music business. I'm just making things up from the top of my head, but that's kind of the way you can move down.
Thanks.
Can I ask, when you're interacting with clients and they're trying to diagnose where in their funnel they're struggling, like perhaps they've got leads that are in the top of funnel, they have some that are going middle and end, but say they're either getting ghosted near the end, and so they're not quite sure how to optimize that further, or if they are just not reaching the right people.
Um, I don't know the business, but what I've done, I like to look at the customer journey and see where the drop off is. Because if you're coming to the end, generally that is usually at the sales side of
Mm,
it. So is there something that marketing can do to enable the sale? Is there when I was in professional services, oftentimes it was just one-on-ones that the partners would have, and they would have those discussions with them, and then the deals or offers that they would offer would be decided by the firm. I wasn't personally deciding that, but you'd want to look at your customer journey, and then also look at, so like, what are all the components that they've engaged with? Have they been on the website? They know all these pieces, and also understand their concerns. So really, it's about listening to the consumer. It's expensive right now? Is there, there's a lot going on with, tariffs and inflation. Is that the real issue? So I think when you want to try and diagnose that is really listen to people, listen to your clients. What is actually happening in the market? Is there a competitor that is undercutting you? We don't know that yet, but definitely listen to them and see what is happening there. But you can also map out the customer journey.
Thank you. And one other question, but sorry, but I don't want to take up too much time. When somebody is testing out a new marketing campaign and it flops, like they're testing out like a new channel where they're putting together a different part to complement the customer journey, for example, and it bombs. It's not necessarily something that they want to give up on, but what are some of the tips and tricks that you would look at to kind of assess where do we think things went wrong and how can we adjust and improve for the next time, or the 2.0 version of that campaign?
So that is, to me, the fun part. That's where you get to really dive into the data. Where did it flop? Was it people weren't clicking it? How are you defining a flop too? Is it that
Mm,
it's not, you haven't converted anyone? Is it that the ad isn't playing out there sometimes different? And that's where you start looking at the data, and then also A/B testing. Certain graphics, I find graphics don't play very well on social media. Pictures do really well. I used to manage an Instagram account for a conservation authority, and I discovered, I'm like, the graphics aren't
mm,
really reaching anyone, and that might be an algorithm problem. Also, they just weren't as interesting to look at as, a beautiful picture of the Niagara escarpment. That was like, oh, everyone's like, oh, that's pretty. I'm going to engage with that. So you really want to dive into the data and be like, why, what happened here? It might not be, and like I said, it might be the algorithm, it might be Facebook saying we're not going to push this. I had some issues with copy where it said, oh, for whatever reason, this is blocked, and I had to actually look at the copy. But definitely do A/B testing. Um, check your written copy, check your visuals, and also look at the market. Maybe you're hitting the wrong market.
mm.
You can only discover that once you go through the data and once you test it.
Cool. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Hope that was helpful.
100%.
Anyone else? Well, with that, thank you everyone for joining. Please be safe driving. I know, like, here we have like very minor flurries in Mississauga. If I'm hearing, it's quite thick and berry. So
It's okay now. We'll
it's
see if
holding off
that, yeah.
now. Well, I hope everyone has a great day and a safe drive home.
Thank you, Karlee. Appreciate your time.
Have a great day, everyone. Bye.